Stay tuned. Ahead, I'll talk with Bart Yasso about 100 Runs of a Lifetime, the world's ultimate races and trails. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and this is Some Books Considered. Bart Yasso, informally known as the Mayor of Running, is the former Chief Running Officer of Runner's World. He was inducted into the Running USA Hall of Champions and is one of the few people to complete races on all 7 continents. He's also the author of My Life on the Run and the co-author of the Runner's World Big Book of Marathon and Half Marathon Training. And he joins us to talk about 100 Runs of a Lifetime from National Geographic. Bart, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Hey, good to be here, Dan. Thank you.
Well, we're not going to have time to talk about all of the things you have in this book, so give us a quick overview. What can readers expect to find here?
Sure, Dan. Well, the first thing, when I did the book, which is titled 100 Runs of a Lifetime, when I wrote down all the races and runs that I'd like in the book, there was 200, which doesn't work in a book called 100 Runs from a Lifetime. So I had to really get serious to narrow it down to the top 100. It was hard to do. And then you got to make sure they're all over the world because, as you know, National Geographic has a global imprint. And so it was, and they, I'm assuming they reached out to me because I have traveled all over the world to run. And so that was the journey, get it down to 100 and then start writing about each run or race. And it was brought back great memories to the events that I've run. And so it was really fun to do. I just locked myself in my little perch here and made it happen.
Well, as you said, you had to cut it down to 100. So what was sort of the criteria you used to get it down to that amount?
Yeah, Dan, great question. So what makes a run of a lifetime? So I snuck one in the intro, and that was what I used as my guide. So in the intro, I talk about running out of the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania, crater that's 30 kilometers around, or 30 kilometers, 18 and a half miles around the rim and 2,000 foot deep, largest cauldron in the world. And the wildlife is teeming on the rim floor. You get to see all the animals you want to see on a safari in Africa. But when it came time to leave the crater, such a beautiful day, I asked the guide, can I run out of the crater? Can I get out of the vehicle and run up this crater wall? And he said, we're not supposed to let anyone out of the vehicle. And it's a pretty steep wall out of the crater. And I convinced him and they let me do it. So I stayed close to the vehicle, which was behind me, ran up the crater wall, got to the crater rim right at sunset, got to see this incredible African sunset. And I always said that was my favorite run of my life. So I didn't know the term a run of a lifetime at the time, but I just called it my favorite run in my lifetime. So I used that as my guide and then started creating these other races. And there's different reasons why some of the races, would be a lifetime run for me, like the Rome Marathon. What meant, it was fun running the Rome Marathon and getting to see the city. But I got to see my mom at Trevi Fountain. And she was, in her mid 70s at the time. Obviously, I knew she wasn't going to be around forever. And we got this great picture together at Trevi Fountain, and she's smiling and she's so happy. And then when she passed away, about 6 years after that photo was taken, that became like my favorite running memory. So I tie in, that's why Rome meant so much to me. If she was just on the side of the road at some other marathon, it wouldn't be the same. She was at Trevi Fountain, and Trevi Fountain's in the photo. So it's, to have that, things like that is when I was writing a book, what kept coming back to me. So, thank God I did run all over the world, and I was able to, get a list of 100 runs of a lifetime.
Now, in these 100 runs of a lifetime, do you have runs that would fit different skill levels, different experience levels?
Yeah, another great question. Yes, I really do. So we wanted to make sure I actually have one section of the book, part 4, is actually not a race. It's just a run. So you can go to this trail or park. you can do it whenever you want to do it, start whenever you want to start, finish whenever you want to finish, and you control the pace. So there, there's no one telling you you got to start at this time. And the run in Central Park or Stanley Park in Vancouver, BC, is just was right down from my hotel, which is in the center of town, and you just get lost in this beautiful park. So I wanted to make sure that there were places that people could go run. That it doesn't matter what pace you do, even if you want to walk it or walk part of it and run part of it, and you do it at your leisure. It's really up to you. So that was and there's a whole section, I believe it's 31, that are called a run, not a race.
Now, it might be hard to top that volcano run, but what are some of the more unusual runs you have in the book?
Yeah, so I start off that run, not races, with the Nepali coast on the island of Kauai, the Hawaiian island of Kauai, because you can just go 11 miles out and 11 miles back and just be lost on this beautiful. You can't fathom that as you go around every corner, the view just gets better and better and better for 11 miles, but it really does happen on the Nepali coast, so it is really unusual. Uh, but then there's, when I ran in Santiago, Chile, which is a big city and a crowded city, I couldn't believe there was this park that I found that was absolutely a quiet place to run. Like I was astonished. I First day I ran in Santiago, I thought, my God, I'm going to get killed. There's cars everywhere. And then I found out about this park, which was not that far from my hotel. And once I got in the solace of that park, I could just zone out and didn't have to worry about cars, and it was really pretty. But you just wherever you travel, you gotta sort out where you want to go, what's really gonna stick in your life forever, what's gonna change your outlook. And that's what always happened to me when I would find these trails to run on, that they would change me forever.
Well, since these are located all around the world, it seems like obviously people would combine this with some vacation time. So let's take the example of someone who's based in the United States. So let's start in the United States. What would be maybe some shorter vacations you could take and experience some great runs?
Yeah, so again, in most races, even races that are in the marathon section of the book, the marathon being 26.2 miles, most races have a shorter distance also. So they may have a half marathon, 13.1, and even sometimes a 5K and 10K, 3.1 miles or 10.2 miles. So, you got to find the race you want to go. So, say that I have a race in there called the Falmouth Road Race, 7.1 miles. They started the race, they went from one bar to another bar in the mid 70s. And the greatest runners in the country did it. Bill Rogers, 4-time winner of the Boston Marathon, Frank Shorter, 2-time Olympic medalist. They would run this race, and it's still going the exact same course that they started in the mid 70s. Cape Cod is a great place to go in the summertime, and it's there's something magical about it, and it's so popular. It's hard to gain entry. That's what intrigues me. How these races, you have to fight to get an entry into the race, and then you got to go out there and do the race. But there's plenty of races like that in the book, like Falmouth. On Thanksgiving Day in Manchester, Connecticut, my one of my colleagues at Runner's World, Andy Burfoot, who's a gentleman that won the Boston Marathon, and he won this race in Connecticut Thanksgiving Day. He won it 9 times in his younger days, but he's completed it 60, I believe he's up to 62 years in a row. He has run this turkey trot. And there's a stat out there that more people in the United States, more people cross a finish line on Thanksgiving Day than any other day of the year. So everybody wants to go out there and burn calories so you can belly up to the table and not feel guilt about what you're going to consume at your Thanksgiving dinner.
Now, there are many examples in the book, but if you have the time and money and can travel anywhere in the world to participate in a race or just have a great run, what's an idea you might plant in someone's head of a great place to go?
Yeah, I'd have to say Cape Town, South Africa is just one of the prettiest locations. Victoria, British Columbia, that has a race, which is another pretty location. Cape Town, the way to explain Cape Town, you're on the Cape, the two oceans come together. It's like sort of like being in San Francisco. Uh, but the only difference is like Yosemite is your backdrop. Like if you're in San Francisco, you got to drive like 3 hours to get Yosemite. If you're in Cape Town, you got Table Mountain, which like looks like Yosemite. It's the backdrop of the city. It just engulfs the city. So you got this kind of Yosemite type mountain, and then you got two oceans coming together. It's a beautiful, beautiful location. Victoria, BC, they have a great race in October, and I think Victoria, BC is one of the best cities out. It's in North America, but Canadian cities I've been to, Victoria would be my choice. I go with Cape Town and Victoria, BC.
Well, you're one of the few people who've run on all 7 continents, and you've been referred to as the mayor of running. How did that nickname come about?
I have no idea where that started, but I've been hearing it for years. And 30 some years ago, someone coined that phrase, and wherever I'd go, they'd call me the mayor of running, and it stuck. They still call me the mayor of running, and it's not an elected position, but I look at it as an honorable thing. If runners consider me the mayor of running, then I gotta run with it and do what I can to keep the sport growing, keep people engaged in the sport, and keep the sport open to everyone. And that when you do that one chapter where it's just a run that you do, there's no race, there's no entry fee. Doesn't matter what shoes you have on or what clothes you're wearing, you just go out and do it. So it is really open to everyone. And running changed my life forever, and that's what I hope people experience. I just went out to run 1 mile 48 years ago. I wasn't thinking I wanted to be inducted in the Hall of Fame and have a 31-year career at Runner's World and run on all 7 continents. That wasn't even remotely in my dreams. I was just trying to run 1 mile one day and maybe get to 2 miles, and a couple of days later try 3 miles. But it opened up doors for me that I never thought possible. Led to my career and my livelihood, and the passion I had for the joy of the sport. Still had the passion, even though I run a lot slower than I used to in my younger days.
Well, if someone listening to this interview is thinking, I'm not really a runner, but I'm thinking I might be interested into it, what would you say to convince them that they should go for it?
Yeah, I personally challenge myself every day I walked in the office of Runner's World that I have to create a runner today that doesn't think they could be a runner or isn't a runner. And because I knew that I could convince someone just to go out there and try it, just try to run from one telephone pole to the next telephone pole. And then you could walk in between the next telephone pole. Just try it, just get out there. And then I always said if I can convince them to go to a run that's at like a running store or the local running club is hosting, once they go there, my job's over because the runners take over and accommodate them, include them in everything, tell them they're doing the right stuff, convince them, hey, we were all slow at the beginning. We all started at the back of the pack. But and then people realize that they can create friends and be encouraged by others, and it's a very inclusive, very encouraging sport.
Well, in addition to the stories and your insights and descriptions, this is a National Geographic book, so it's also filled with wonderful photographs. So what can you tell us about that?
You got that, Dan. Yeah, that was one of the early questions I had. Once I signed the contract, I reached out to the editor and said, what happens when it comes down to photos? Because I had some photos from all over the world. And they said, we'll get the photos. They said, we want you to send us one photo of you running, and we'll use that in the intro area, and then we'll work on the photos. And man, the photos they use are just incredible. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine sent me a message. Her 3 kids were home for Easter, and she had the book on her coffee table. And she said every time she walked in the living room, one of the kids had that book open. And they're not runners, and they were fascinated by the photos in the book. So she sent me a message, said, this book's going to take off. These photos are unbelievable. That phrase, a photo speaks 1,000 words, is really true when you have National Geographic photography.
To learn more, the book is 100 Runs of a Lifetime, The World's Ultimate Races and Trails by Bart Yasso. Bart, Thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you, Dan. Hopefully, we created some runners that are going to be out there, take a look at this book, and then go for a little run.
If you'd like to purchase 100 Runs of a Lifetime, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more books you might find interesting. I'm Dan Skinner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.